I'm hoping that this merger is just a way, or this non-merger, if you will,
Yes.
is just a way for them to kind of stand their ground
Right.
and essentially say to Honda, "Hey, we're equals. We should be on equal playing field. We need to be a partnership in this, not a subsidiary to you." Hey, welcome back to Two Car Guys with Adam and John.
Yeah,
Hey.
what's up, guys? Welcome back to the Two Car Guys podcast. We're here to talk about fun.
I don't know if this week's going to be so fun, John.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
So we hit on it before.
We did.
And now here we are talking about it again.
Yeah, so if you guys clicked on the link, first of all, thank you for coming back to the channel. If you clicked on the link, you saw what this whole episode is about, and it's about the Nissan and Honda merger. What's really weird is the news keeps focusing on Nissan and Honda. We kind of leave Mitsubishi out of it,
Yeah.
which is probably fine since I continually forget that they still make cars. I guess that's
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. I thought they were a washing machine company, right?
Yeah, yeah. So the big news is that Nissan has decided to end all talks with Honda over, the most recent merger. Really, if we take it back a little bit, the reason why Nissan got into this, John, was because they were trying to, well, first of all, they were trying to avoid bankruptcy.
Right.
Right. And they were trying to team up with the other Japanese auto manufacturers to try and stay ahead of the Chinese EV market and
Right.
try to take the fight to Tesla and some of these Chinese EV brands, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. This whole thing, didn't think that the Japan cars were in that bad of shape. The companies were in that bad of shape, but next thing you know, here we are, and it's been interesting.
I mean, I think the biggest issue is you and I don't get to, because we're here in America, for anybody who's watching outside the US, we don't get to see a lot of these cars that are over, in Europe and Asia and that sort of thing, because they don't make it into the US.
Right.
Whether that's by design because they don't want the competition, right? There's an argument to be made there, or whether they don't meet our safety standards, and I would say in some of these cases, I think it's more by design, right?
Yeah.
But we don't get to see it. But, from everything we know, the Chinese car market is booming. Like they are making some insane cars. I don't know if you've seen it, but they've got a car that can float. They've got a car that can
whole episode on just the cars that they're coming up with.
Yeah,
and the craziness that's in these cars.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
It's pretty crazy, and they're seeing some true competition coming out of China.
Yeah,
and that's really, really putting them on high alert. At least that's what it looks like on the EV side, at least.
And I know we're gonna get some EV hate in this video, right?
Right.
But we're in the U.S. We're starting to see the EV market slow down, and I don't care who you click on, who you're watching right now. They'll tell you that EVs are not a good buy, new or used. If you're worried at all about depreciation, an EV vehicle is a terrible vehicle to purchase. However, right, if you're not worried about depreciation and you don't want to be going back and forth to the pump all the time, right, you buy a used EV and you're in good shape, because you can get them really, really, really cheap.
Somebody said it the other day. I think me and you were talking about it, and it was how low is the depreciation on a Tesla right now? And they're like, it'll go to zero, like legit to be a car that goes to zero. And
it's scary to think. Pretty bad because Tesla as a whole, and I mean Tesla's probably the one brand out there that has it together, right? They know what they're doing. They've got the technology down,
right?
But the truth of the matter is, there's a secondhand market that doesn't really want secondhand EVs, right? So the EV resale tanks drops like crazy. Yeah. Then you've got, and I mean, there was a point where Teslas were kind of going through some growing pains because we often forget they're a new company in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
But I have to argue that they've like I said, they've got it figured out. They have fixed a lot of the issues they've had, a lot of the quality control issues. But whether you like EVs or not, just like your cell phone, every time you charge your phone, the battery kind of goes down a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have a really good plan for how to recycle these batteries. Yeah. And so the EV market It's not good new. It's not good used, right? And so it's just a challenging market to be in.
Tough, yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of pushback in the industry, especially in sports cars and high performance cars that are pushing away from it. Look at Bugatti.
Yes.
Bugatti walks in and says, not only are we not doing a hybrid like all these other companies, we're going to do a W16.
Yes.
And we're gonna get away from all the digital gauges and stuff, and we're gonna go back to analog. We're gonna have analog
even
gauges.
The small amount of like EV in like a normal car where they're doing the hybrid stuff.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of pushback from manufacturers on that stuff now.
We are. Yeah.
So it's real interesting to see where things are going in the future and where we're going to be at in the future with these cars.
But we say all that because, again, John and I live here in the United States, so we don't see the pressure that Nissan and Honda are under, right? And so what's interesting is Nissan, who needed the bailout, who needed the help, right? Now they're saying that they don't want to be a subsidiary of Honda, right?
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to be a subsidiary of Honda. They were really saying that they're wanting to. They're actually teaming up with another company. Was what I was reading.
So the other company that they've been talking about is Foxconn. So for anybody who knows who Foxconn is one of the companies that helps assemble iPhones, right? And so they're in that market where they're helping to assemble electronics and battery related stuff. And so they're hoping that they can leverage their battery technology to help them build better EV cars and be competitive again. The truth of the matter is, we said this on the last episode. I drive by the Nissan dealership and they're loaded down with cars.
Yeah.
They have every car known to man. And the truth is, we in the US, we're not clamoring for EV cars.
No.
So by Nissan saying, okay, we're going to put all our eggs in this basket and we're going to go to war against the EVs in Asia, right? And we're going to team up with Foxconn. I don't know that that's the answer that's going to save Nissan.
I don't either. And my thing is, like, if you're already hemorrhaging money, you had the option to be teamed up with one of the best in Japan, and become a big manufacturer together. And they said they had completely different opposite views on things. And
they did.
According to this report. And that makes you wonder though, because like, I mean, Honda's making a pretty good car.
Honda's making a great car.
Nissan, on the other hand, not so much.
I don't know if you saw, but Honda was working on a program where they were trying to build technology to take old internal combustion vehicles, ICE cars, right?
Yeah.
And turn them into EV cars.
Right. And we've seen a couple other manufacturers try to do that as well.
Yeah, so their goal was to start to transition some of their old cars and turn them into EV cars, which is kind of an interesting proposal. Yeah. But again, when most people are going to buy Hondas, we're buying them because of their reliability.
Correct.
I haven't seen a Honda in a while that people are excited about. Right. Now the Honda Civic R was something that people got excited about because it brought back some nostalgia. We've talked about that in some of our other episodes. Yeah. And now they're talking about bringing back the Prelude. Yeah, right? Yeah. That would be an interesting car. That would go up against the Nissan Z, but the Nissan Z is not selling.
Well, they finally outsold the Supra for the first time a few months ago, and that's their biggest competitor for that car. So
it is
interesting. I would pick the Supra over the Z personally, and
I would definitely pick the Supra over the Z. And I don't dislike the Z, but the Supra's to me, I think is a better car. And it's got the guts, if you will, or the heart of a BMW. You know,
the B58 platform is just a good platform.
It is,
and it's in a lot of cars now. And we've talked about this before, obviously. But
so let me ask you a question, right? Do you think this is all show? Do you think that Nissan backed out because they want Honda to come back to the table and say, "Hey guys, we'll be partners in this. We won't make you guys be a subsidiary of Honda." You guys can be on the same level.
I'd like to think that's what it is, but honestly, I think they just have very different philosophies in the companies, and both people are wanting to hold the biggest stick, and neither one is wanting to back down from that. And I don't know that they'll get through that.
Don't get me wrong, I get it, but let's be honest here. At the end of the day, if Nissan continues on this trajectory, they could end up with no car company.
That's the scary truth,
right? Because Honda's not in trouble.
Yeah.
Honda's not over there going, hey, we need help. And in fact, if you read this article and some of the stuff we've researched in the past, Honda's actually got a relationship with GM with their battery technology.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So, I mean, Honda's not over here going, oh my God, if we don't get this deal, we're done.
But I honestly
Nissan
think
is.
that, I think that it was not Honda or Nissan that really wanted this merger.
No,
I
it was
really
the
think
Japanese government.
Japan.
Yeah.
And that's the question, was there enough for Nissan to be like, I don't care about this. Like, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah,
And
I think
you know what I mean?
I think you're right. I think part of it was the Japanese government came back and said, "Listen, guys, we're losing to China,
Yeah.
and if we keep on our trajectory, we're gonna be, we're gonna be in the background, right?"
Yeah. Well, you know what sucks though is we had thought of some pretty cool cars we would have seen, right? Like
Yeah.
a rear wheel drive, 3-liter V6, Nissan,
Yeah.
or not Nissan, Honda, and then
I'd love to
they're
see
like,
a rear wheel drive Honda. We haven't
Yeah.
seen one. I mean,
well,
in a long time.
supposedly the S2000 is coming back, supposedly.
I would love to see an S2000 back. I don't know why. I think it's because these last few episodes, you and I have been talking so much about like
JDM cars,
JDM
and
cars
stuff.
and tuner cars and stuff like that. I've started to like look up a lot of the old JDM cars and especially the S2000.
Yes.
I think that would be a really cool car to bring back. But I
But
I
imagine
don't know.
like a GTR spec Honda, like, right? Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
would be so cool, man. But I guess without this merger, we're not going to get it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping. Okay, here's the deal. I'm hoping that this merger is just a way, or this non-merger, if you will,
Yes.
is just a way for them to kind of stand their ground,
Right.
and essentially say to Honda, "Hey, we're equals. We should be on equal playing field. We need to be a partnership in this, not a subsidiary to you."
Right.
And to Honda's credit, Honda's probably looking at them being like, "Hey, you need us. We don't need you."
Yes, but then Nissan's the one that walked away from the deal. So
They did,
it's-
but again, right? So if you needed money and you came to me and I said, "Look, my company's flush," right?
Like,
you're gonna end up being a subsidiary of my company, and you're like, "No, I built this company over years and years. I'm a known name brand. I'm not going to be a subsidiary of Honda. We're going to team up together."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No, that's not how it works." And you just leave,
Yeah.
right? Then
I
maybe.
guess. Oh well, Honda's like, oh well, that works for us.
Maybe.
You know?
I don't know. I'm really interested to see what's going on because Honda's so big.
Yeah.
Honda's got, boats and power equipment and generators. All that stuff, and
mean-
it's just crazy to think that you wouldn't want to expand that a little bit. But
Right.
we talked about this before, right? Because Honda is technically a direct competitor to Nissan, right? Honda and Nissan are competitors. Acura and Infiniti are competitors, right?
Yeah.
So you've got Honda and Nissan, Acura and Infiniti.
Yeah.
What happens to Acura and Infiniti when you blend the brands? What happens to Honda and Nissan when you blend the brands?
Yeah.
Because if you look, General Motors, they got rid of Pontiac.
Right.
Because Pontiac was too much like Chevrolet.
Yeah.
So you had GMC and Chevrolet, and GMC is the refined version or the stepped up version of Chevrolet. And then you've got Cadillac, which is an even more step up. So you
bigger
almost have like a tier, right? So the problem is if you're looking at Honda and Nissan and you're looking at Acura and Infiniti, they're so on level playing fields.
Yeah.
The only way you could differentiate them is to kind of have them in a step model.
Yeah. Well, it's like you look at Hyundai and Genesis, and it's kind of the same situation, right? I would say they're all kind of competitors in that same market.
Well, Hyundai spun off Genesis, right? To
Right.
give them to give them a premier brand.
Premier brand, right?
And what's really funny is a lot of people that I met didn't even realize that they were the same company.
Oh, wow. But yeah, no, I'm with you. But at the end of the day, it's going to be. I'm curious. Are they putting that much of their eggs in the EV basket though? Because that's the scary. What's the future? I mean, Porsche is right now trying to find a way to put an engine in an EV because they didn't think that was going to play out. And so now you're like, okay, if they're putting all their eggs in this EV basket? Like, what happens when that doesn't pan out?
Porsche's Taycan sales have dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
And if you look, I mean, which is really crazy because they didn't sell anything for EV last year.
Right.
And this year they sold even less than they did the year before, right?
Yeah.
So, or 20, I say this year, 2024, they sold less than 2023.
Right.
The crazy part about that is they thought that that was the way of the future. And if you watch, there's a lot of influencers out there right now that are reviewing the newest Taycan.
Yeah.
And they're talking about how amazing it is and how it's got a personality all its own. And it's fast and it's fun and it's exciting. And they're still not selling any of them.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if you put the Taycan and the Panamera up against each other, people are choosing the Panamera, even if it's the hybrid Panamera,
Right.
because they have the hybrid option rather than go full electric in a lot of cases, right?
Yeah. And, eventually, I think that there will be a shift where we'll see more EV sales and stuff like that.
There might be.
But
And for those of you listening that are like, oh,
Yeah.
these guys hate EV, I don't hate EV.
No.
I'm looking at the market and I'm telling you that EV right now is a bad buy any way you slice it. If you go to the dealership right now, the EV cars are dramatically reduced, and then on the secondary market, they're ridiculously discounted. And what's really crazy is if you look at typical Tesla ownership, which I said earlier is probably the best of the bunch.
Right.
The owners that have them are getting out of them before the battery ages, right?
Yeah, and another thing too to talk about is that these things end up technologically losing their wow factor.
Well, losing their edge.
Yeah, losing their edge, or it's like a phone. It outdates over time. Like this phone isn't going to connect.
That's
like
it, but that's exactly what it is. What's
like,
interesting is Bugatti built that car and they built it with analog gauges because they're timeless. They built it with a W16 or sorry, a V16 because it's timeless, right?
Yes, exactly.
And what's crazy about that is every other vehicle, your vehicles, my vehicles, they all have digital gauges and digital clusters and all that stuff. But what's crazy is as cool as we think those are, 3 or 4 years from now, the technology is going to look completely different and those cars will look outdated. That Bugatti still looks classic.
Yep. And that's one of the things too, like the Viper. I've never put a flip up radio or anything like that in it, but when I bought it, that was what you did. Everybody did that. And I'm so glad I didn't, because like now it's like it's just analog, and that look is never going to be any older than it is right now. So
yeah, I mean,
it's
one of those things where we don't realize that this new technology, it gets dated so quickly.
Yep.
And just like you just mentioned it, just like having a cell phone, everybody wants the newest, latest, greatest cell phone.
Yep.
We're starting to get into that realm where cars, especially when they're paired with AI and all this technology, it's very quick to go from one technology to the next. We talked about it the other day, right? My Raptor is a 23.
Right.
The 24 model has heads-up display and has Blue Cruise.
Right.
Blue Cruise is not much different than what I have. It's just hands-free driving on the highway. It just means that the car won't yell at you if you take your hands off the steering wheel.
Right.
And then heads-up display is a nice to have, but it's not, especially if you have polarized sunglasses on. It's not a great.
You don't see it.
Yeah,
really.
it's not a great addition to the car.
Yeah.
And there are people who are going to look at that and go, "Oh, I'd really like to have hands-free driving. I'd really like to have heads-up display." Yeah. And they'll walk away from a perfectly good vehicle to get into one that has the latest, greatest, next technology.
Exactly. And that's the future, man. And that makes leases on electric cars, I think, way more appealing to people.
I think a lease on an electric car is a very, very, very smart move, especially if you're the type of person that electric car fits, right? Because I can tell you, especially now, an electric car is not for everybody.
Yeah.
If you have an electric car in your household, you should probably have one and an internal combustion vehicle, because if anything happens to the power grid, if there's a major storm, if anything happens like that, you at least have something you can fall back on.
Right.
Not to mention the fact that if you want to go on a long road trip spur of the moment, but you might not be that type of person. You might be the type of person that operates in a 40-mile range or 30-mile range around your home, and those cars are phenomenal for you. Exactly. And the ranges are getting better every day. The batteries are getting better every day. The charging is getting shorter every day.
Yep.
So at the end of the conversation, if you're really looking for a EV car, a lease is the way to go, because at the end of the day, the lease price is going to be the only thing that's going to be out of pocket. You're not going to incur all of that, all that depreciation, which is just crazy.
Yeah, and even though it's a electric car and it doesn't have maintenance and stuff like that, there's still maintenance. You still have issues. Those are still, it's just different issues.
Yes, I mean there is. I do know some people who've had their cars in and out, of the repair for whatever reason and stuff like that. But in theory, if your car's in good shape, there's no oil changes involved, right? It's just brakes and tires.
Brakes and tires, yep. And it seems like tires and brakes have gotten extremely expensive in the past 2 years.
Yeah. Tires and brakes are very interesting lately.
Interestingly, gotten more expensive.
I told you I took a nail. One of my tires was $800. I was like, when did this become $800?
Yeah, you could buy a set for that.
A set installed.
Yes.
Crazy.
That's unreal, man. And now that's where we're at. I mean, and that's the future, unfortunately.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't know what this merger means.
Right.
What this this pause. I bet it's a pause. That's where my money's at.
You think it's a moving negotiation tactic from
I definitely think
Nissan?
So. I definitely think so. I think that this is Nissan's way of saying, don't count me out. Yeah. I'm not any less than Honda, right? I'm Honda's direct competitor. And on that same token, don't make me a sub brand, if you will.
And I think that's what it is. They want to operate the same. I think that's what it is.
Honestly, I wonder if they're worried if they become a sub brand, if that gives Honda control over like what cars they build.
Yeah,
and what they get away
or
from.
Does that say, okay, now Nissan, you're with us, all your people are with us, your cars are no more?
Could be.
They
could pick and choose the cars they like and take them over.
Yep.
Honda's never had a good truck, right? Yep. The Ridgeline is not a great truck. It's based on a minivan chassis. And as much as I love Honda, if Honda had built a Tacoma-style vehicle 10 years ago, I'd have had one the day it came out.
Right. But that
Ridgeline has never been a good vehicle.
Yeah, they've never operated really well in the truck market.
No, because they don't have a truck.
Right.
Exactly. They don't have a full size SUV. Their Pilot's not like full size, right?
Right.
Not to the extent of like an Excursion or an Expedition or something like that. But Nissan has the Armada. They've got
the Arcadia. Is that right? No, the Armada. Yeah, Nissan.
Yeah, they have the Armada.
Yeah.
I think they had the Arcadia at one point in time.
Yes.
But yeah, Nissan's got the Armada, and then Infiniti has the equivalent of that.
The Q60.
And it's a Q60.
Yeah.
And they're both great vehicles.
Right.
But Honda has nothing like that.
Right.
Nothing.
And also the only car that I'm interested at all in from Nissan is the GTR or the 370Z or something like that.
Yeah, but the GTR's gone.
Z or Z, whatever it is.
GTR's gone.
Yeah.
The Nismo Z's here. I haven't seen one.
I haven't seen one in person.
So I'm not necessarily interested in that.
Right. But at that money, I'm buying something else. And that's
that money I'm getting a M2 comp, or I'm getting an M2 comp.
Yeah. Same.
I'm sorry. I've driven an M2 on the track, and it's probably one of my favorite vehicles I've ever driven, and I don't know why I don't own one right now.
Oh, get one. Let's go.
Yeah. We'll see.
If this channel does well, we'll both get one.
That's right. We'll buy one and build it on the channel.
Shameless plug.
That's right.
But yeah.
Well, listen. If you guys think that we're wrong here, and you think that maybe Nissan is just maybe had to participate in the discussions around the merger to save themselves from possible bankruptcy and tick their stock prices up. Possibly. We've already seen their stock prices come down since they made the announcement, so that's not a great thing. But tell us what you think. Leave some feedback in the notes below in the messages. Tell us what you think. Share this with your friends. Get their feedback on it. For anybody who's watching this, we just broke 600, which is unbelievable.
Let's go. Yes.
It's awesome. So we're continuing to grow. We've got a lot more content coming to the channel. We've got some people that we're working with to bring some new content to the channel.
Yes. Bringing back some Formula One stuff.
Yes.
For the fans.
Our next episode,
Absolutely.
for those of you guys that are interested in Formula One, our next episode will be about leading up to Formula One. This is going to be an amazing season.
It's gonna be an interesting season for sure.
So make sure you're subscribing, make sure you're liking, make sure you're interacting with us, and make sure you're forwarding this on to your friends so that they know and they can come and listen to the channel too. But on that note,
we'll see you next time.
See you on the next one.